Unit 9, this is polynomials. This is the review for polynomials, the unit on polynomials. So we're going to start with adding, subtracting, multiplying these polynomials, and then we're going to move into factoring, and then we'll go back a little bit and review the other concepts. Okay, so when we're adding or subtracting, things we want to do, first thing we want to do is work on ridding ourselves of parentheses. Then we want to group our like terms, and then we want to combine the like terms to get our final answer. So first, looking at the parentheses, when there is no negative out front, the parentheses just fall away. So I have 5x squared minus, I'm going to put a 1 in front, 1x. And then on the right, parentheses, there's a plus sign, so it just falls, the parentheses falls away. I have plus 1x squared minus 6x's plus 4. And then next, I'm going to group my like terms. So 5x squared plus 1x squared. And I'm going to connect those coefficients. Okay? And then negative 1x minus 6x. I'm going to connect those coefficients. Lastly, I have positive 4. This is own term. So 5x squared plus 1x squared gives me 6x squared minus 7x's plus positive 4. All right. Next, number 2, looking at the parentheses. I want the parentheses to fall away, and they do. So I get 4x cubed minus 6x's plus 1. Now, with the negative, this negative is going to change all of the terms inside to the opposite of what it already is. So positive 3x cubed becomes negative 3x cubed. Negative 8x squared becomes positive 8x squared. Positive 1x becomes negative 1x. Positive 3 becomes negative 3. Then I want to group my like terms, so 4x cubed pairs with negative 3x cubed. Connect my coefficients in front of the x cubed term. Next, I have negative 6x and negative 1x. Connect my coefficients there. Next, I have positive 1 and negative 3. Connect those coefficients. Lastly, I have positive 8x squared. It has nothing to pair it with, so it's going to drop down. So I get, for 4x cubed minus 1x minus 3x cubed, I get 1x cubed minus 7x's minus 2 plus 8x squared. And there's my final answer, guys. Number 3, I have, I'm distributing this 3x. This 3x is going to distribute to each term inside. So 3x times 4x to the 5th. Okay? Then 3x plus 3x times 2x cubed. Okay? Then plus 3x times negative 1. So before we move on, things I want you to make sure of is that you're putting those parentheses there. And when we go through this problem, we're going to multiply numbers, and then we're going to count our x's because they're side by side. When we multiply variables, we're counting them. So 3 times 4 is 12. I have 1x here. 5 more gives me x to the 6th. Plus 3 times 2 is 6. 1x here plus 3 more is x to the 4th. And then 3 times negative 1 is negative 3, and x just comes down. There are no like terms to combine. All you do is distribute here, write the directions, distribute 3x to each term inside. But how do you deal with the cases where you have a binomial times a binomial? Well, first, we say 2x times this second expression, okay? So 2x times 4x plus 1. That's the first thing. Then we say 3 times the second expression. We'll break that first group apart. Plus 3 times 4x plus 1. Okay, and then we're going to distribute 2x times 4x's plus 2x times 1. Then over here, we're going to say 3 plus 3 times 4x plus 3 times 1. Simplifying, I get 2 times 4 is 8, x times x is x squared, plus 2x times 1 is 2x, plus 3 times 4 is 12, and my x drops down, plus 3. Then I combine the like terms here, so I have my end goal equals 8x squared, plus 3x, no, 2x's plus 12x's is 14x plus 3. Next problem. Same thing. X times the second expression. So x times x plus 8. Minus 2 times x plus 8. And x times x, and then x plus x times 8, minus 2 times x, minus 2 times 8. I'm going to simplify. I get x squared plus 8x's minus 2x's minus 16. Combine my like terms, x squared plus 6x minus 16. And just to check if my factors are correct, say negative 16 multiplies to negative 16 adds up to 6. So I check my two original numbers here, negative 2 and 8. Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. Negative 2 plus 8 does equal 6. So this is the correct answer. Okay. Number 6, we're expanding this expression twice. So this breaks down into x minus 3 times x minus 3. So when I end, I should end up with multiplies to 9, adds up to 6, adds up to negative 6. That's what I should end up with. So we're going to check and make sure we end up this way. So x times x minus 3 minus 3 times x minus 3. Let's make sure that's right. Yes. Okay. So x times x is, and then x times negative 3, positive x times a negative 3. Then a negative 3 times x, and a negative 3 times a negative 3. Simplifying, I get x squared minus 3x plus 9. This equals x squared minus 6x plus 9. Final answer. Number 7. This is a difference of two squares, except we're multiplying the difference of two squares. So I get x times x plus 5, and then negative 5 times x plus 5. I'm going to skip some steps here. So x times x squared. X times 5 is positive 5x's. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x's. Negative 5 times 5 is negative 25. Combine like terms, I end up with x squared minus 25. Here's the answer. Number 8, 4x. So we're going to say 4x times the quantity of all of these, 2x squared plus 3x's minus 2. and then 1 times this whole quantity. Okay, so from left to right, we're just going to put these things together. So 4 times 2 is 8. I have x to the 1 times x squared, so I count my x's. I have 1, 2, 3, so x cubed. Then 4 times 3 is 12. I have x to the 1 times x to the 1, and I get x squared. Then 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. With the next, I have 1 times any number is itself, so 1 times 2x squared is 2x squared. 1 times 3x is positive 3x's. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. I'm going to combine my like terms, so 12x squared pairs with 2x squared. Negative 8 pairs with, let me do that in a better color, pairs with negative 2. So starting with 8x cubed, this just drops down. 12x squared plus 2x squared is 14x squared. Negative 8 minus 2 is negative 10. And then 3x, positive 3x, just comes down. There's my answer. Now when we're dividing, it's like having a greatest common factor, and we divide each term by this factor here. So 20x to the 7th divided by 5x to the 1 minus 15x cubed divided by 5x to the 1 minus 5x to the 1 divided by 5x to the 1. Okay, so just starting from left to right. Okay, so 20 divided by 5 is 4. I have 1x on the bottom, so I subtract it from the top. I get x to the 6th minus 15 over 5 is 3. X cubed divided by x to the 1, get x squared. 5 cancels, x's cancels, and I'm left with the number 1. So just make sure, make a note, divide each term by the factor. That's our goal there, okay? For the perimeter, we're adding all sides. You add all sides. So here I have 1, 2, 3. So my perimeter equals 1 plus 2 plus 3. So side 1 plus 2 plus 3. Okay? So let's see what side 1 is. It's 4x plus 2. So we're going to ignore this. Side number 2 is 3x's. I'm going to line up those like terms. Side number 3 is 1x plus 7. It's a 1x plus 7. So I'm going to combine these like terms. I get 8x plus 9. And that's my final answer. That's the perimeter. This is the perimeter. I add all sides. Okay? Number 11, we're doing algebra tiles. So what polynomial is represented by the picture below? So these are my x squared tiles. The squares are my x squared tiles. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So here I have 4x squared. My x tiles are all the rectangles. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 x's. So 6 x's. So I'm going to erase that real quick. Kind of rewrite that a little bit. So 4x squared here, 6 x's down here, and then 2 x's, 2 rectangles on the bottom. And then right here I have 3 1's. So we're going to combine those like terms and write out our polynomial. So 4x squared plus 6 x's plus 2 x's is 8 x's plus 3. This is the correct way to represent this polynomial. Now, finding the area, we're multiplying the length times the width. So this is the length, this is the width. Okay? So that means I have x plus 3 times the quantity of 4x plus 1. I'm going to write this as the area. All right, so x times this second polynomial. So x times 4x plus 1. Then 3 times the second polynomial plus 3 times 4x plus 1. Simplifying, I get x times 4x plus x times 1. Then over here, plus 3 times 4x plus 3 times 1. Now equals 4x squared plus, that's a plus, sorry, plus 1x plus 3 times 4 is 12. X just comes down. Lastly, 3 times 1 is positive 3. So I combine my like terms, and I get 4x squared plus 13x's plus 3 as my final answer. 13, we're going to add these like terms. So parentheses are just going to fall away because there's no negatives out front. So let's just go away. So I have 2x squared minus 5x squared. So there's my first two like terms. Then I have negative 3x's plus 7x's. Then I have negative 1 minus 4. Combine like terms, I get negative 3x squared plus 4x's minus 5 as my final answer. Number 14, I'm subtracting, so I'm going to go ahead and change this portion here. So all of the terms inside become the opposite of what they already are. So 8z becomes, so I'm just going to change those signs. So this distributes, becomes negative 8z. Distribute again, becomes negative 3b. And again, negative 1c. All right. So now I'm going to group my like terms. So I have 1a, and I check the second portion. Is there another a? No. So next, positive 3b. So I check the second portion. There's another b, so negative 3b's. Then I check plus 19c minus 1c. So the only thing I haven't taken care of is this negative 8z's. So now I can combine like terms. So 1a is just comes down 3, the coefficients of b, 3 and negative 3, the coefficients of c, 19 and negative 1, and the coefficients of z. So 1a just comes down. This goes away, or you could write plus 0b. This becomes plus 18c and negative 8z's. So just simplifying, I have a plus 18c's minus 8z's. And that's my final answer. Now, very much like before, we're dividing each term by that factor. So 36x squared over negative 3x plus 12x's over negative 3x plus 9 over negative 3x. So from left to right, negative 36 over negative 3 is negative 12. X squared divided by x is x. 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. X divided by x is just 1. Plus 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. And the x stays on the bottom. So you be careful, you be cautious, and you be wary. Okay? Number 16, divide each term by that factor that down there. So 9d squared minus 54 d to the 7th divided by 9d squared plus 36d squared divided by 9d squared. From left to right, 81 over 9 is 9. D cubed divided by d squared is d. Minus 54 over 9 is 6. D to the 7th divided by d squared is d to the 5th. 36 divided by 9 is positive 4. D squared divided by d squared is just 1. So we just cancel those out. Okay. Now, next it says factor if possible. If not possible, write prime. So what we're going to do is factor out our greatest common factor here. All right. So the biggest number, I'm going to write it right here. The biggest number I can divide out is a 4. The biggest variable x I can divide out is the smallest x. So checking my x's, smallest x is x. For y's, I have y squared, y, and y cubed, so I can divide out a y. I'm going to come back and go through that and factor out 4xy from each term. That means I'm going to divide each term by 4xy. So on the top, I should have 16x cubed y squared minus 8x squared y plus 20xy cubed. So going from left to right, 4xy, my greatest common factor, just drops down. 16 divided by 4 is 4. X cubed divided by x to the 1 leaves me with x squared. Y squared divided by y is y. Minus 8 divided by 4 is 2. X squared divided by x is x. Y divided by y is just 1. Next I have 20 divided by 4 is positive 5. X divided by x is just nothing. Y cubed divided by y is y squared. And there's my final answer. I can't do anything else because of those variables. And that's all I can do, guys. So be careful, be cautious, and wary when you're working with these. Number 8 looks like there's 4 terms. 4 terms means I'm grouping. I'm grouping this polynomial. So I have 4x cubed plus 24x squared. That's one group. I have 3x's plus 18. That's another group. Now I just need my greatest common factor for both groups. So I'm just going to do that down here. So my first group, 4 and 24, the biggest number I can divide out of 4 and 24 is 4. The biggest variable, remember, is always the smaller variable term. So I have x cubed and x squared, so this is x squared. So I'm going to divide out 4x squared from that bigger group. And then on the left, I have greatest common factor of 3x and 18. So I have 3 and 18. The biggest number I can divide out of 3 and 18 is 3. There's an x in the first term. There's no x in the second term, so there's nothing else I can divide out. So I'm going to take these greatest common factors and factor them out. So I'm going to write my 3x out here and divide each of those terms by 3x. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm combining two things into one. I apologize. My first greatest common factor is 4x squared. So 4x squared divided by, first term divided by 4x squared. Make sure your parentheses are there. 24x squared divided by 4x squared. Okay. On the right, I'm going to have my greatest common factor over here. 3 come out and divide each term by 3. Then I'm going to simplify over here. 4x squared is going to come down. 4 divided by 4 is just 1. X cubed divided by x squared is x. Plus 24 divided by 4 is 6. X squared divided by x squared is just 1. And now, before I move on, I should end up, my greatest common factors are definitely going to be different. Okay, those are going to be different. But on the inside, I should end up with the same thing. So I highlighted my greatest common factors, but those expressions that fall in the green section should be completely different. Okay, so I'm going to highlight this a different color. Let's highlight that blue so we can show that those greatest common factors, those are going to be distinct and very different. Okay, so my greatest common factor pops down. On the inside though, 3 divided by 3 is just 1, and I get x plus 18 divided by 3 is 6. And so I said one of my expressions is going to be the same, but the greatest common factors, this is why it's called grouping, they come together. 4x squared plus 3. It's a process of distribution in a sense, and then one of those expressions that are the same. Okay. Here, number 19, this is the difference of two squares. Okay, number 20, we're going to be using column number 2. 21, column number 1 on our graphic organizer. 22, column number 2 on our graphic organizer. 23, slide and divide, and I don't know which column, probably column number probably three or 4, I can't remember. And number 24, column number 3 or 4. I'll figure that out. But let's go ahead and do this difference of two squares. So for difference of two squares, we take the square root of the first term and the square root of the second term. And what it ends up being is a combination of these results. So x plus 7 times the quantity of x minus 7 here. Number 20, we're looking for two numbers. They multiply to this positive 16. They add up to this negative 8. So two numbers, and they both have to be negative. So we go through the system. Negative 1, negative 16, I get negative 17. Negative 2, negative 8, I get negative 10. Negative 3 doesn't work. Negative 4, and negative 4, I get negative 8. There's my factor. So this equals x minus 4 times the quantity of x minus 4. 21. Two numbers multiply to positive 40, add up to 13, and both of these are positive. So 1 and 40 gives me 41. 2 and 20 gives me 22. 3 doesn't work. 4 and 10 gives me 14. 5 and 8 give me 13. So I have the quantity of x plus 5 times x plus 8. 22, looking for two numbers. Multiply to 24, adds up to negative 11. So the bigger number has to be negative. So 24, negative 24 and 1 gives me negative 23. Negative, let's see, positive 2 and negative 12 gives me negative 10. Positive 3 and negative 8. Oh, I'm sorry. I did that wrong, guys. That's not a negative 24. It's a positive 24. So positive 24 multiplies to positive 24, adds up to negative 11. So here both of my numbers are negative. My apologies. So negative 1, negative 24 gives me negative 25. Negative 2, negative 12 gives me negative 14. Negative 3, negative 8 gives me negative 11. So my factors are x minus 3 times x minus 8. Number 23, it's a slide and divide problem. So I'm going to circle 6. It slides over, and I multiply negative 5 times 6. This makes the 6, the original 6 on that coefficient of x squared, it goes away. And this becomes x squared plus 7x's minus 30. Now we can use those skills to find two factors that multiply to negative 30 and add up to positive 7. So first, multiply a and c, and then at the end, we're going to divide a, and then we're going to slide. Okay? So let's do it. So two numbers that multiply to negative 30 but add up to positive 7. So I think this is column number 3. And we're looking to have a bigger number that's positive. So that means smaller number is negative. So negative 1 and 30 will give me 29. Negative 2 and 15 gives me 13. 3 and negative 3 and 10 gives me positive 7. So my factors are x plus 3. No, I'm sorry. X minus 3. X minus 3 times the quantity of x plus 10. Okay? Divide both sides by that number I multiplied, which is 6. Simplifying, get x minus 1/2. And times the quantity of x plus 5 over 3. And I do want to slide this back over. So my final answer is equals 2x minus 1 times the quantity of 3x plus 5. Okay? Number 24. Looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 3 adds up to 5. So I have my bigger number should be positive, smaller number is negative. So negative 1 and 3, and 3 minus 1 is 2. So that doesn't work. There's no more factors of 3. So this is prime. It is prime. So the answer is there are no rational roots. Okay? 25, 26, we're looking to factor out a greatest common factor, and then we're going to factor like a trinomial. Okay? So two types of factoring take place in 25 and 29. So my greatest common factor for number 25, it's not going to be a number because there's not a number in each term, but x, my smallest x variable is just x. So I'm going to factor this out. So x times the quantity of x cubed over x plus 6x squared over x plus 5x over x. So remember what I said, we're going to factor this first, and then we're going to do factoring of a trinomial inside. Okay, so we get x times x cubed over x to the 1 gives me x squared plus 6. X squared divided by x is x plus 5. Those x's cancel. Now inside I have two numbers multiply to 5, add up to 6. So both of my numbers are positive. So 1 and 5 equals 6. So here this becomes x times the quantity of x plus 1 times the quantity of x plus 5. 26, greatest common factor is 9. There's no variable in each term. So I'm going to come down here, 9 times 9x squared divided by 9 minus 36x divided by 9 plus 36 divided by 9. So factor the greatest common factor first, and then we're going to handle that trinomial inside. 9 divided by 9 is 1, so I get 1x squared minus 36 over 9 is 4. X comes down plus 4. Now we're looking for two numbers. Multiply to 4 adds up to 4, so I have 1 and 4. That's 5. 2 and 2, here's 4. So my factors, I have 9 as a factor. I have x plus 4. I'm sorry, x plus 2. X plus 2 times the quantity of x plus 2. So things I want to point out to you. There's like several different factors here, but we factored one of them. This is a factor. And we broke it down into this factor and this factor. Also, 9 remains a factor throughout. So you guys did pretty good. Okay, next we want to know which binomial is a factor of the following. So let's go ahead and slide and divide. Let's break this up into factors. So we're going to say 3 comes over here, get x squared minus 4x minus 21. So we're looking for two numbers. Multiply to negative 21 adds up to negative 4. So both of the bigger number has to be negative here. So we're going to say 1 and 21. 1 and negative 21 get negative 20. 2 doesn't work. 3 and negative 7. I get negative 4. So there's my factors. So this breaks down into x plus 3 times the quantity of x minus 7. I divide both sides by 3. And I get x plus 1 times x minus 7 over 3. Now we do have to slide this 3 back, so this ends up being x plus 1 times 3x minus 7. Now we're going to go back and look at these choices, and we're going to see, is there an x plus 1 or is there a 3x minus 7? Okay, so I can tell you right now, x minus 1 doesn't work. That's not an option. 3x minus 1, that's not an option. However, C is an option, and I do not have x minus 7. So when I factored this, it became this. So my answer is C. So all they're asking you to do says which binomial is a factor of the following expression, 3x squared minus 4x minus 7. Factor first, and more than likely you're going to have to slide and divide, right? Figure out which one matches A, B, C, or D on the test, okay? Which polynomial is the only one that cannot be factored over a set of real numbers? So, two numbers that multiply, you have to go through, see if you can find two numbers. So the first one multiplies to negative 24, adds to negative 5x. So the bigger number has to be negative. So we're going to say 3 and negative 8. That works. For B, multiplies to negative 14, adds up to positive 5. I need bigger number to be positive. So 1 and 14 won't work. Negative 1 and 14 won't work. But 2, negative 2, and 7 do work. So 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. 7 minus 2 is 5. Number C, so we're looking for the ones that cannot be factored, cannot produce factors. For C, two numbers that multiply to 18 but add up to 9. So 1 and 18, that equals 19. 2 and 9, 2 times 9 equals 18, but it adds up to 11. 3 times 6 equals 18 and adds up to 9, so our factors are 3 and 6. Lastly, for two numbers that multiply to 3 and add up to negative 5, so all I have is 1 and 3. Negative 1 and negative 3, they add up to 4, so this is the correct answer. There are no factors that make that statement true. Number 29, what is the quotient of this number? Assume the denominator does not equal 0. So what you could do is just factor two numbers that multiply to 6. Multiply to 6 adds up to 5. So I have 1 and 6. That equals 7. 2 and 3 equals 5. So my factors are x plus 3. So times the quantity of x plus 2. I already have, I did that wrong, guys. It multiplies. Gotta check that. Multiplies to positive 6, adds up to negative 5. So my bigger number is negative. So both numbers are negative. So -6 and -1 gives me -7. -2 and -3 gives me -5. So I write out my factors there. So we're looking for one of these factors, x minus 3 or x minus 2. And I already see that here. So the other one's got to be x minus 2. So it can't be A, can't be B, can't be blank D, has to be C. So they're going to give you one factor, you just have to pick out the other one. So for the last two, 31, 30, and 30, you're going to factor out the greatest common factor and then circle those greatest common factors. So circle factors as you go through the problem, okay? So as we go through the problem, so where am I going to do this at? So first, greatest common factor here, the GCF, is 3. There's no x to divide out, so 3 parentheses 3x squared plus 18x plus 24. So divide by 3. So the first thing we're going to go see is our greatest common factor here. And here it is. All right, so there's my greatest common factor. Then I'm going to divide it out and check that polynomial. So 3 times the quantity of 3 over 3's cancels. You get x squared plus 18 divided by 3 is 6. X comes down plus 8. So is this a factor? And right here, this polynomial shows up right here. So be careful. All right, that's a factor. So that's part of my answer. Next, I need to factor this polynomial inside. So I'm looking for two numbers. They multiply to 8, but add up to 6. So it's going to be a short list. So 1 and 8 equals 9. 2 and 4 equals 6. So x plus 2 times the quantity of x plus 4. So I'm going to go find my factors. X plus 2 and x plus 4. So guess what? Everything else is not a factor. This is not a factor, this is not a factor, and this is not a factor. The only factors are that greatest common factor and the simplification of taking it out, and then the factored form of that other polynomial. Okay? Number 31, I have 4x squared minus 400. My greatest common factor here, GCF here, is 4. And after that, we're working with the difference of two squares. Okay, so let's factor out that greatest common factor first. So that means 4 is a factor. All right. So here, want to simplify, 4 comes down. 4 divided by 4 is just x squared minus 100. And I'm going to break this down into factors. The square root of x. So the square root of x squared. So x squared equals x. The square root of 100 equals 10. So this simplifies into the quantity of 4 times x plus 10 times the quantity of x minus 10. All right, so we want to check all our factors. So I've checked off 4, got that greatest common factor of 4. Next, I want to check for x squared minus 100, and here it is. Next, I want to check for, oh, sorry guys. Next, I want to check for x plus 10. Here it is. And then I want to check for x minus 10, and here it is. So I'm going to circle all those answers. These are my answers. What's not my answers? Anything that did not show up at the bottom. So that's pretty much it for Unit 9. Your test is coming up next class. So I'll give you your factoring organizers. Um, I'll also give you a copy of this review. Have a great day, guys.